My name is Jasper Friedrich, and this is my virtual presentation for what should have been the PSA Undergraduate Conference, and it's called State Apologies, Reimagining Politics or Reinforcing Realism. My presentation deals with the growing phenomenon of state apologies. State leaders seem to offer their expressions of regret for past violence against its citizens ever more frequently. The Trudeau government in Canada is a particularly stark example, with 7 official apologies so far. Some scholars have even dubbed this the age of apology. So how could we understand this trend? Most authors see it as a radical break with cold neoliberal individualism, as a harbinger of a more humane and convivial future. I take a different perspective and suggest that maybe we can see them as symptoms of contemporary neoliberalism, symptoms of a time where we are unable to imagine alternatives to the current neoliberal nation-state and therefore might as well make our peace with it. So in my work, I've developed a theory of political apologies based on speech act theory and a Foucauldian understanding of power. I conceptualize apology as a speech act that attempts to repair the state's relationship to groups of citizens that have previously been wronged. And what I would like to suggest is that more often than not, the restoration of this relationship serves to reinforce the state's hegemony. So what we need to do is to pay attention to the kind of relationship to its citizens that the state enacts when apologizing. And what we see in apologies like the one Justin Trudeau offered to the victims of the Komagata Maru incident is that they reinforce the dominant neoliberal governmentality by casting citizens as entrepreneurs and the state as the enabler of free competition. So in this way, the state tries to redirect anger produced by historical injustice in a way so it does not challenge the current hegemony. By suggesting that all grievances can and should be resolved within the current political system, such apologies serve to reinforce the idea that there are no alternatives to the current configuration of the state. Thus, I see them as symptoms of what Foucault has called our indefinite time and what Mark Fisher has called capitalist realism. However, I'm not entirely pessimistic about apology politics. Looking at calls for apology by Indigenous activists in Canada, for example, we can see that these often invoke a radically different relation between the state and Indigenous nations. This is a relation between sovereign nations and not between the Canadian state and its Indigenous subjects. So while the current flurry of state expressions of sorrow may be a symptom of a time where we seem to have lost the ability to imagine alternatives to the current order, those who campaign for apologies frequently show us how they could serve as a tool for transformation. Just as apologies can be used to enact hegemonic state-citizens relationships, they can also be a site for enacting subversive relationships to the state and a site for reimagining politics.